Okay, welcome. Welcome to our webinar for Education USA on planning for successful transfer. My name is Tobi Hay. I'm the Director of Admissions at Clinton Community College in Plattsburgh, New York.
And I am Girard Vogl. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Global Education at the State University of New York College at Plattsburgh, commonly referred to as SUNY Plattsburgh.
When working with students who plan to transfer, it's important that they determine what their academic goals are, as well as their career goals. What do they want to study? What is their intended terminal degree? And by terminal degree, how far do they want to go? Do they want to earn an associate's degree, bachelor's, master's, or is a PhD what they're ultimately looking for? The reason that's important is for a successful transfer process, students will have met all of their course prerequisites when they get to that transfer institution and therefore be ready for upper level coursework. So it's really important that they make the most of their time at the community college in studying the right courses.
So much like choosing any institution in the United States, there's a process that a student would go through that starts with the academic process. What do they want? Where do they wish to go with their academics? What career does that lead to? But they also need to be considering the other priorities they have for their studies and for their time in the United States. So questions like, where do you want to study? Do you want to study in rural America or in urban America? Those two experiences will be very different, whether you're attending a community college or a university. How long does it take to get the most out of your study abroad experience? Do you want to be here as a visiting student? Are you expecting to do your associate's degree in 2 years, then return home for a time and come back? And then, of course, one of the most pragmatic questions is, what is the cost of attendance, including both billed and unbilled costs? And this is one of the reasons that we commonly hear that students start considering many options, regardless of location, because that becomes a primary hurdle and objective to make it affordable for their family. When looking at this from a pathway point of view, we encourage students to look at it in a holistic way, that they consider it an entire menu, if you will, to use the analogy of a meal. So look at it as a full 3-course meal or 2-course meal, associate's degree, bachelor's degree, rather than a la carte. So look at it all together as one package. The other thing that Tobi and I benefit from is that we are within miles of each other. And so students who go to Clinton Community College can easily come to Plattsburgh, get a test experience here. They can even sit in our courses here or even cross-register for courses here and get a very close relationship between the institutions and the professionals of both institutions.
This slide illustrates a sample pathway for a student who might be interested in chemistry. Community colleges offer certificates and associate degrees. Within associate degrees, there are a couple of different types. There's an AAS, an AA, and an AS. So students looking to transfer after their community college experience really should focus on an AA or an AS because those programs are designed for transfer and will include introductory coursework related to the subject, like chemistry, as well as some general education courses that will be required by the transfer institution. Universities will offer bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, and PhDs. So in this sample pathway, a student would start at a community college, like at Clinton, and be a math science major in an AS degree. Sample coursework would be those introductory chemistry and science and math, general chemistry, general physics, calculus 1, calculus 2, and then those general ed requirements that I refer to, like English and history. When they transfer to SUNY Plattsburgh, they would be in the Bachelor of Science program for chemistry. They'd be a chemistry major, and their courses would be those upper level subject courses, inorganic chemistry, for example, biochemistry, the quantitative chemistry, and then again some general ed requirements like world history and arts. So that is just a sampling of the coursework. And if this is a smooth, what we call seamless transfer, at the end of the 4 years, the student will have earned a Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry. They would have a nice liberal arts education, good cultural experience, As Jackie said, in this very specific example, where both schools are in the same town, which probably makes it an easier process culturally. And then they're prepared to either start their career in the science field or move on to a master's degree.
So, taking all that into consideration, how does one decide, or how do you as advisors help a student decide? Well, transferability, as we can say, is key. So there are colleges, many colleges, for whom their transfer population is as important as their first-year student population. And you can often see their enthusiasm and their commitment to transferability through their websites. So we will show you later on the SUNY Plattsburgh website as an example, but you will find many colleges have on their own websites information about their transfer and articulation agreements. And that you can work backwards from there to find the community colleges with which they have a very strong relationship. I think Tobi and I have talked about this, and of course we work in public university system, but we really think that they have an integrated approach that is the most transparent when it comes to transferability. Oftentimes we're required by a university to set up articulation agreements, to set up that integrated approach, which benefits the student tremendously when they enroll at the first institution. So SUNY provides just one example. Of course, there are others. California State, the California system also, I believe, is quite integrated, and as well as the Washington State system. So SUNY is one example of that. And we refer to this now in the SUNY system as systemness. So it helps when students start and want to go through the full pipeline.
The State University of New York system has had a real focus in recent years, thanks to our chancellor, on transferability, and I'm guessing that that is the case at those other systems that Jackie mentioned. California, Washington, Pennsylvania, and Virginia also have large state systems. Just to give you a sense of what one large system looks like, this is a map of the State University of New York. We have 64 campuses. You can see that we are located throughout the state. We have 4 different, what we call sectors or types of colleges: community colleges and university colleges, which are represented, today by Jackie and I, as well as technology colleges and university centers and doctoral degree granting institutions. This is the largest in the country, actually. We have 5,000 degree programs. We have 465,000 students. So a lot of opportunities, and transferability within such a system, again, this is just one, really is designed to be fairly smooth. And again, we will look at a couple of examples of evidence of that for students, to identify good resources at the end. So
there's a timeline. Students would typically spend about 4 semesters in a community college, in an associate degree program. And the first semester, really, it's really their transition to that community college that is the most important, that they get their degree requirements there set in place, that they have an advisor that they're working with, that they're, right from the beginning, setting a foundation for success there. In the second semester, that's when a student should really start in the middle of their first semester, start checking the degree requirements at the transfer institution to make sure that the courses they're choosing for their associate's degree integrate well with the degree they're choosing to pursue at the bachelor's degree. And there are many people who work closely. The advisor, I use the word advisor here, but there are multiple advisors who can help at that point. The transfer advisor, oftentimes the community college has a transfer advisor. The student will, of course, have an academic advisor in his or her major. And there's also the admissions advisor at the transfer college, the bachelor's degree granting institution, who more than likely is very willing to help with that process, so the student makes a seamless transition when the time comes. In the third semester, that's when the student would actually start contacting the eventual bachelor's degree institution and inquire about deposits, applications, what kind of documentation is going to be required, what the process is for the actual transfer application. And then in the fourth semester, or the student's last semester, they would apply for admission and go through that admissions process yet again, as they did with the community college. A little bit more complicated usually when you get to the bachelor's degree granting institution. Community colleges are open admission. Most bachelor's degree granting institutions are not. But at that point, the bachelor's degree institution will more than likely be looking only at the community college achievement for making a decision. They will typically not go back to the high school transcript to determine whether a student is admissible or not. The other thing is we will be looking at grades and transcripts, not only for admission, but also for scholarships. When you're thinking about picking a pathway program, that may be something you want to look at as well. Does that institution, that is the end institution or the bachelor's institution, offer any incentives for enrollment as a transfer student?
Items to consider in the admissions process are many. I will speak to the ones at the very beginning of a pathway for the community college, and Jackie will speak to what comes next. Conditional admission is something that some community colleges will offer students who need help with their English skills. So they won't be admitted directly into an academic program, but rather would be admitted to an English as a second language program. Deadlines will vary even within the same system, and mostly because based on the academic program. As Jackie mentioned, most programs at the community college level are not selective, or what we call open enrollment. They're also what we call rolling admission. So we will review applications and accept students as those applications become complete. So there's no hard and fast deadline. Now the exception to this would be programs that do have selective admission. So typically at a community college, those programs that are medically oriented, like a nursing program, for example, will have a hard and fast deadline, will have selective admission. So students interested in those fields really do need to pay close attention to that. Same goes for the GPA requirements. Typically at a community college, the only programs that will have a GPA requirement will be those selective programs like nursing. Regarding proficiency, some programs will look for a certain level of math proficiency and English proficiency. And that can be satisfied often by coursework taken prior to coming to the community college, or by standardized tests, or often by the school's own placement testing process. And, you know, again, those schools that typically have an English proficiency requirement probably do not offer an English as a second language program as an alternative. So some schools will, some schools will not. So again, in addition to students knowing what their academic goals are, they should have a sense for where they fit regarding the math and English requirements.
So that's the first part of the admissions process, admission to the to the community college. Of course, there are some things on this slide that are applicable to both. So both the community college and the bachelor's degree granting institution will have admissions office websites, will have plentiful information on their websites. Many of us will also be using social media to connect students to get that impression from an unbiased student opinion. Probably our students are a little biased. But more than that, there's a great deal of outreach between the institutions, especially for those that have agreements between the institutions. So for myself, when we have relationships with all the community colleges, and in particular relationship with Clinton, we attend their open house or campus programs. We have transfer fairs that they offer that we attend. There are transfer advisors who are very familiar with, at Clinton, that are very familiar with what we offer at Plattsburgh and elsewhere. So they are consummate sources of information. And transfer advisors who recruit at community colleges. So we have somebody on our staff who regularly goes out to the various community colleges in SUNY to talk not only with students but also with the advisors there to update them about our requirements, especially about specific programs. So it's a big gathering of information, but there are tremendous sources and people who are actively engaged in that process with you. The newest thing to come to SUNY is something called Degree Tracker, which will allow students to take whatever courses they've done at community college, plug them into an online system, and determine which campus will be the fastest pathway to graduation based on their major. It will create a different level of transparency than we've ever seen before, even within our own system.
At this point, I'd like to ask Victor to please share our screen so that we can share with you a couple of live websites that have some good resources. The first site we'll look at is linked to Clinton Community College's website, and it's a list of our transfer agreements. Again, when students are looking at colleges and pathways, they'll want to be aware of, does a college have such agreements, and with what schools do they have these agreements? So the chemistry student that we looked at before would look at this and see that we do offer a pathway for chemistry, and the school that that's with is SUNY Plattsburgh. You'll also see financial information and analysis with Clarkson University. Hotel, resort, and tourism management with Paul Smith's college. So you get a sense for the academic path, and then what school will that path lead to.
And I'm sure, Toby, if I was to click on one of these, which I'm not sure I want to, but if I were to click on one of these, it would go to some explanatory information about how to make that transition.
It would have details about the actual course requirements.
And on our campus website, on SUNY Plattsburgh's campus website, we have very clearly articulated transfer credit equivalencies, primarily for the schools from which we see a lot of transfer students. So if a student is attending an institution outside of the United States that we haven't been terribly familiar with, you won't find it here. But every single community college is listed in SUNY, so that if a student wanted, for example, to go to Clinton first, and see, okay, I'm thinking about taking this English 101 class, or let's go back to one that's already here. This Accounting 201 class at Clinton, intermediate accounting, they will see that it transfers to Plattsburgh. More importantly, if they say Accounting 101, Principles of Accounting 1, they will see that it transfers as our Accounting 101. So it helps a student make very good choices at the point of selecting courses for all of their semesters at the community college. And again, I think that probably the transfer counselors are at the community colleges are as familiar, if not more familiar, with these sites than the students would ever have to be themselves. So these are just two examples of the way there's an integrated approach, both from the community college level and the bachelor's degree granting level.